Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. No watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere in the state currently for tonight or tomorrow. So we'll move on to the first graphic, which is the fire danger graphic, and there is no fire danger anywhere in the state either that, or at least at the high or extreme levels of fire danger. The highest I saw was Upper Yukon Valley and back here to the west out toward the coast there. But that didn't even come close to the high fire danger category, so nothing on here. So we may be seeing the end of this chart here pretty quickly. And on the satellite imagery, fair amount of precipitation pushing up into the Brooks Range here, especially the eastern part, on out to the Arctic coast and North Slope, east side. Drier conditions back to the west and down to the south, as well as the southwest here. And the coastline dry. We have this system pushing northeastward. Grazing Kodiak Island, that's obviously pushed east of Kodiak now, and the rain has ended this afternoon after Kodiak City Airport picked up about 0.8 of an inch of precipitation. I'm sorry, not a third of an inch of precipitation. AKwx had 0.8 of an inch, and that was a 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Rain spreading up into the North Gulf Coast, about 0.4 on the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula, and a third of an inch at Cordova. It's not real heavy rain. And then the heaviest up in this area was from about Cape Yakataga to Lituya Bay, anywhere from a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch falling today, and some moisture there and clouds down across the Panhandle. Rolling this through again, you can see it's mostly southwest to northeast in the flow here. Moisture just getting up into northern Cook Inlet, some light shower activity around Turnagain Arm on down across the Kenai Peninsula, and also some shower activity scattered around the eastern part of the state there, and a little bit back to the northwest, but amounts quite light. And out farther west, we've got some clouds, but dry conditions there for the western Aleutians. High pressure, keeping it mostly dry, but a lot of low clouds and IFR here over the Bering Sea. And winds, not a problem at all. Heaviest wind, Port Heiden, about 25 miles per hour for those winds out of the northwest. And 35 mile an hour winds here on the south side of this 1,007 millibar low due to the pressure difference between that system and the 1,023 millibar high here. So across Norton Sound, again, Nome, Unalakleet, gusts 35 miles an hour today. And those are about the strongest wind reports around the area. Lynn Canal south, 25 miles per hour for wind gusts. Anyway, here's the zone of rain here for the eastern Brooks Range, and about 0.4 of an inch falling today at Arctic Village. On out to the Arctic coast, lighter amounts, but still a pretty wet, rainy day out there at Kaktovik and Barter Island, back to about Dead Horse, and then just areas of fog west of there. Scattered showers, light showers along the Alaska Peninsula, pretty isolated though, and that low center right up just south of Resurrection Bay here. And then the warm front out along the coast, we'll see for tonight, that system pushes eastward, and definitely you'll see an increase in the rain here across all of the Panhandle, especially down to the south. Moderate amounts, heaviest over the northern Panhandle, and tapering off back to the west here. Offshore flow clears the skies out, definitely ends the precipitation, which has already occurred at Kodiak. So look for them clearing overnight tonight into Kamishak Bay and Kachemak Bay as well, and even eventually into Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound. Showers linger along the Alaska Range, up into the Tanana Valley, especially over the White Mountains, and back to the west along this trough axis. Lighter precipitation coming in tonight for the eastern part of the Brooks Range and North Slope. Could see some rain and snow possibly there on the east side, but nothing significant. Temperatures now in the mid-30s, so that kind of puts it in that zone. 1,026 millibar high, light winds, low clouds, fog, IFR, Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, Aleutians, and then throw some rain in with this next system pushing in toward the Adak and Atka area. and could see some 30 to 35 mile an hour wind gusts with that system for small craft advisories. And then looking ahead to tomorrow for Tuesday, that system low center tracks up to, or moves over to roughly near Amchitka at 994 millibars. Front in this position by 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So that'll spread some rain into Nikolsky, and then eventually in Alaska and Dutch Harbor with southeast winds ahead of that. Again, possibly gusting 30, 35 miles an hour at the strongest. Low clouds and fog, though, for the Bering Sea. High pressure in right along the coast now. Actually, the center in over the Yukon or Kuskokwim Delta. And again, clearing skies there with maybe some showers here along this trough in the central interior areas. And again, mostly sunny day tomorrow. Looks like very nice if you're going to the State Fair. Madanuska Valley should be mostly sunny. And same thing for Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula. Kodiak Island, partly mostly cloudy or sunny, whichever way you want to look at it with the northwest winds. Probably see a little more sun on the east side here, give or take. It'll tend to clear out. Still some moisture early on. Not bad over the southern Copper River Basin on out to Cordova. And over to Yakutat, a dry day, or at least a dry afternoon. Rainfall now shifting off to the east and southeast. Heaviest now farther to the south. Definitely a lot more rain coming into there tomorrow than what you saw today down that way. And then for the outlook for Wednesday, just some lingering showers over toward the central and southern border areas there, Stewart and those locations. Otherwise, partly sunny to mostly cloudy with low clouds and fog along the coast. Much drier day for this panhandle. Pretty good here. Another nice day coming up south central Alaska, the North Gulf Coast with some areas of sunshine as well as clouds. Isolated showers possible there around the Eagle area and up here over the Noatak Valley. Cold front drops down out of the Arctic, brings a chance of rain or snow to the central and western Arctic coast in the afternoon. Looks like light amounts of precipitation with that. Bigger storm out here, 986 millibar low there, tracking into the northern Bering Sea front, pushing a good shot of rain into the coast from actually the Bering Strait all the way down into Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, and then along the cold front as it crosses the eastern Aleutians. Then a break here, but pretty gusty westerly winds. Throw some showers in that windy condition there with that next trough out over the western Aleutians. Taking a look at the low temperatures for tonight, 30 to 33 or so, near or just below the frost point there on the eastern Arctic coast, and maybe the North Slope as well, right around freezing. Mid to upper 30s there for the Brooks Range, 40s south of the mountains, mid 40s all the way down to the southwest coast, 47 St. Paul, and upper 40s for the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians, 40s to lower 50s south central Alaska, and mid 50s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow, not much of a change here with that rain and cloud condition moving in, so your lows in the mid 50s will be translate to highs not much warmer in the upper 50s to lower 60s. Definitely warmer here, 65, 67, maybe 68 in some areas of the Susitna Valley, even the Madanuska Valley, on down into the Kenai Peninsula. Lower to mid 60s for Bristol Bay, and struggling to reach 60 anywhere in the central and northern interior. Best chance would be there at Fort Yukon or Chalk-Yitzhak, near 40 for the central Arctic coast. And then for the lows, a little milder up there for the Arctic coast. Looks like 30s, maybe 32 at Kaktovik, 43 at Point Lay, and mid-30s for the Brooks Range. Otherwise, lower 40s to the south. And then the highs again, 60s, mid-60s for the Bristol Bay area and south central Alaska, as well as the Panhandle.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather. Solid IFR here from the northern Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, eastward to the Koyukuk Valley, and then all the way out to the Arctic coast and beyond. Mostly marginal VFR here through most of the central and southern interior. Some patchy areas of IFR, northern Cook Inlet, and over toward the Madanuska Valley, and back here over northeast Bristol Bay. IFR out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. IFR over the Panhandle and out into the at least the central Gulf of Alaska. And then for tomorrow afternoon, VFR breaking out here across all of southern Alaska to even Kodiak Island and inland areas of Bristol Bay, and then up to about the Kuskokwim River. Yukon Delta marginal, central interior marginal. Looks like the Brooks Range higher altitudes there into VFR, North Slope marginal, lots of IFR out over the Bering Sea, and all of the Aleutians, south side of the Alaska Peninsula. And then for Wednesday morning, central western Arctic coast, IFR, southward to the Brooks Range, actually past the Brooks Range into the Noatak Valley, possibly to Kotzebue, across the Kobuk Valley, in toward the Koyukuk, and then a patch of VFR to the northeast, and also here roughly in the Tanana Valley. Marginal VFR becomes, again, areas of VFR, southern Alaska. Lots of IFR out here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, again, mostly the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, right up to about Sitkinak and the southern Panhandle, marginal becoming VFR up Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, North Gulf Coast to Prince William Sound. And then for the afternoon, good VFR here from roughly the Kuskokwim Mountains through the valley, in across south central Alaska, central and upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country VFR, Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast, and the lowest conditions improving here over the central and northern Panhandle, but still some IFR down south, and IFR here, eastern Bering Sea along the coast, up across St. Lawrence Island, south side of the Seward Peninsula, and back to the southwest. Passes for Anaktuvik improving throughout the day, going from possible IFR in the morning to possible VFR in the afternoon. In fact, the VFR is pretty likely, and the same forecast for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrow, marginal VFR becomes VFR probably by mid to late morning, actually. Same forecast for Rainy by noontime, give or take, and then windy, staying marginal the entire day. Same thing for Isabel and Test. Looks like a marginal VFR day for both those passes. Tanita, though, good VFR. And for Portage, marginal VFR becoming VFR, and again, probably during the morning hours. And for Chilkoot and White, socked in with IFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet, eastern North Slope and Beaufort Sea coast, and then about 6,000 to 8,000 feet, with 8,000 feet here across southern Alaska, 10 to 12 over the Panhandle, and 8 to 12,000 here over the southern Bering Sea. Looking at icing, really not too bad here over the interior, maybe some leftover, due to leftover moisture above about 6,000 feet, could be some isolated moderate rime icing up over the eastern interior areas, and then down over the Panhandle above about 10,000 feet with a warmer air aloft, could see some isolated moderate. Big area icing out here with that next storm out over the central Bering Sea, extending down to the eastern Aleutians, but that's up above 11,000 feet, in some cases above 12,000 feet. And for the jet stream, some ridging here, but still we have, even through the ridge, there's like 70-knot winds blowing through that ridge and then off to the southeast here. But that's enough to downslope off the Alaska Range. It'll make for a pretty nice day and maybe some sunshine for Cook Inlet, Matanuska Valley State Fair, and the Susitna Valley. And then the next trough farther out to the west with a good southwest flow with that. And that will be definitely bringing a wet pattern in after Wednesday. Otherwise, high pressure in over the southwest interior at 9,000 feet, ridging, and then northwest 20, 25 here across Kodiak Island, not too bad, maybe west 30 on the Arctic coast, 45 to 55 with that storm out in the Aleutians. Light winds over the Panhandle with that weakening low over the central areas, and 3,000 feet, 25 cutting across the extreme southern southeast coast. Light northerlies 10 to 20 here along the North Gulf Coast. Westerlies 10 to 20 and up to 30 on the Arctic coast, and about 35 knots there for the Aleutians. Turbulence, Kodiak Island up into Kamishak Bay, lee side of the southern Alaska Range, occasional moderate, and also from Umak Island all the way out to about Adak.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. As you well know, you can get forecast information for any day of the week. Today, tonight, tomorrow, out to 6 or 7 days. It includes the high and low temperature, the wind direction, the chance of rain or snow in your part of Alaska. But did you know that there is information available to forecast out to 2 weeks? So the question is, how would you use that information? And here to answer that question today and tell us a lot more about climate services from the U.S. National Weather Service Alaska region is Rick Toman. He's the program manager for the Climate Science and Services. And Rick, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
How would we use information that is out to 2 weeks instead of just the high and low and the chance of rain?
Well, Dave, as we move out in time, of course, forecasts become more uncertain. So as we move into that second week from now, we're not looking at specific highs or lows or precipitation amounts at any given place. What we can do with the state of the science at this point is get a handle on patterns. So we can say things like increased chances for stormy weather in the Bering Sea in 2 weeks, or we've been in a cold weather pattern, looks like 8 to 10 days from now, that pattern's going to change. Those are the kind of forecasts that we can currently make in that second week.
So you're increasing lead time for perhaps big or small weather events and telling us the likelihood of maybe more coastal storms or wind events in some areas?
Those are the kinds of things that that we hope to be able to let Alaskans know in the second week forecast. And if you have an activity or an event that you would find that kind of advance notice useful, whether it's moving stuff off of the beach, whether to go out hunting or to come back from camp, those kind of decisions, the week 2 provides the opportunity for you to get a handle on that kind of information.
Okay. What other type of weather impacts that we're familiar with might Alaskans use climate services for?
Well, in the forecast realm, we can go provide some information from this week 2, say the 8 to 14 day period, on out to the monthly and even seasonal time scale. Now, those monthly seasonal forecasts are still kind of just really very much pattern dependent, and the amount of detail that we can provide at this point is still pretty limited. Generally, indications of how temperature and precipitation will fall in maybe above normal, below normal kind of range. But in the week 2 period, we can be considerably more specific than that as far as the general patterns and really the impacts on Alaskans.
Okay, so we would be talking about generalizations there that would tell us that the period might be more stormy, might be more hot, more dry, more cold, and situations like that.
That's correct. So we're not going to be able to say in which community, for instance, there's the threat of coastal flooding, but we can often be able to tell we're moving into a pattern that would be conducive to big Bering Sea storms. So if you're in an area that could potentially impact you, you'll want to pay attention to the weather forecast.
Okay. Now, every day and every hour of the day, the National Weather Service is working on a forecast for the next day. But how do you start your forecast process for that extended period that goes out beyond 7 days?
Well, the way things work right now, we start off with the expected general flow pattern for Alaska and the whole world, really, and then we narrow that down to Alaska. So we start off with the basic computer model forecast. There's quite a few different computer models that we look at, bring those together. And then another important part of that is we attempt to assess the confidence. The reality is often 2 weeks away, the computer models are very divergent. They have lots of different solutions, and that's an indication that we don't have much confidence. But when we see more agreement in that time frame, and when that agreement is a pattern that will be potentially very impactful for Alaska or is a big change from what we've been in, that's when we can then take that expected pattern. We have computer models forecasting it. We've assessed the confidence. Now we can move that forward. How, using our experience as Alaskan weather forecasters, how does that typically play out for Alaska? So is this a stormy pattern for the Bering Sea? Is this an extra rainy period for Southeast? Is this the kind of pattern that generates strong winds potentially in the Anchorage Bowl? Is this a deep cold pattern for the interior? All of those are the kind of things that we're looking at in these large-scale patterns. That's very different than telling you that the winds on 10 days from now are going to be gusting to 120 on the hillside. We're looking for patterns, not the very specific information that the Weather Service will then hone in on as the event gets closer.
So the idea is to keep the 5, 6, 7 day forecast the same, where you are getting the standard high and low temperature and the chance of wind or rain, but further out you get a broad general forecast, but as the time gets closer to that event, we'll get a lot more specific.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. So how can people use this information if I am out in the bush and I want to see, is a coastal storm expected in my region, or is a chance for that improving over the next 2 to 3 weeks? Where could I go to get information like that?
When we see that potentially impactful or a big change in the weather is coming 8 to 14 days out, typically we will start to highlight that on the Weather Service Facebook site. We might produce a YouTube video highlighting that, linking that on our Facebook site. So often we don't, at this point, we don't have much to say in that because we're really looking for those forecasts of opportunities. But one thing we can say very likely as we go through the next 2 or 3 years, there'll be more and more of this kind of forecast information available in that week 2 time frame.
Okay, and something that emergency managers and city planners and folks in villages might be interested in keeping an eye out for, looking for that information to be headlined, whether that's on social media or perhaps through the National Weather Service channels there to get information from you to make better plans a little bit longer term and make better preparations in the event that things become a little bit more unsettled.
Absolutely. Climate Services with the National Weather Service Alaska region is talking to the state of Alaska every week, apprising them of that 2-week outlook. And on the social media side, we are working to keep Alaskans informed so that when we think we have some confidence in a high impact or a big change, that's the best way right now for folks to find out about that. Twitter, Facebook, so stay tuned to your National Weather Service.
Very good, a developing program. Rick Thoman with the National Weather Service Alaska region. He's a Climate Science and Services Program Manager. Thanks so much for joining us again, Rick, and I hope to have you back again soon.
Great, thanks Dave.
For another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis showing the area of heavier ice out through here gone now. Still a fair amount of heavy ice north of the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and this area holding tough in close to the eastern coastline there as sea ice free water now getting past the Point Barrow area. And this area continues to expand and grow. And that trend will continue for the next 4 or 5 days. On to the coastal water forecast. West 30 knots, small craft advisories, 10-foot seas here on the south coast. South 25, Clarence Strait. Southeast 15 knots for the central and northern inside waters. North 25 here on the north coast, diminishing to northwest up toward Yakutat. And then for Wednesday, north coast here, west at 10. Northwest 15 on the central coast, picking up to 20 knots down south with 10-foot seas holding. Otherwise 8 to 9 here, or 7 to 9 up to the north. Light winds for Stevens Passage, north 20 for Lynn Canal and northwest 15 for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound, northwest 20 knots tomorrow. Same thing for the North Gulf Coast, northwest 20, seas 7 to 8 feet. And we've got northwest 30 knots here for the Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, west at 30 knots, much lighter though for Cook Inlet, westerlies at 10 with seas 1 to 2 feet. And for Wednesday, not much change there, northwest 10, seas 1 foot for Cook Inlet, and a big change here for Kamishak Bay, east 15 with 2-foot seas, westerlies coming down to 15 for the Barrens, and kind of a, call it variable at 10 for the North Gulf Coast with seas running 4 to 5 feet, northwest 10 for Prince William Sound and 2-foot seas or less. And for Shelikof Strait, west winds 20 knots tomorrow. Same thing here on the east side of Kodiak Island. Sitkinak to Castle Cape, northwest 15. And then easterlies 15 to 20 for the Alaska Peninsula, northwest 15 for Bristol Bay. For Wednesday, southeast 20 here for Bristol Bay. Alaska Peninsula on the Bering Sea side, small craft advisories, 25 knots southerlies with 8-foot seas. And south side here, we're looking at westerlies at 25 with 12-foot seas. Sitkinak to Castle Cape south at 20 and southwest 15 here for Shelikof Strait and Kodiak. Out in the Aleutians, 20 knots there from Osam Chitka west or Kiska Island west to Shimia and Attu. Then 30-knot winds with minimum gales here for the central Aleutians, 30-35 knots from the east-southeast, seas 10 to 13 feet, and 25 to 30 knots for the Fox Islands. with those seas running 7 to 12 feet. Outlook for Wednesday, those winds swing around to the southwest here at 25 to 30 knots. They'll hold the small craft advisories in. Also for the central Aleutian, southwest 30, 10 to 13 foot seas. And now small craft advisories extend all the way to the far western zone. And then the southwest coast tomorrow, south of Nunivak Island, east at 10, north side, south 15, turning west at 10 for St. Lawrence Island, up to 15 in Norton Sound. East 25 for the Pribilofs with 6 foot seas, southeast 20 for St. Matthew Island. And then on Wednesday, 30 knot winds here with gale force wind coming into the picture for St. Matthew Island out of the east with seas at 11 feet. South to southwest from the Pribilofs in toward Kuskokwim Bay and south side of Nunivak Island at 30. North side, southeast 30 knots, east 30 for St. Lawrence Island, only 15 for Norton Sound. And for the Beaufort Sea coast, west winds 15 knots on the east side, central coast and west side 20 knots, northwest 10 to 15 for the Chukchi Sea. And then for Wednesday from Wales up to Cape Thompson, light southwest winds at 10. And then 20 knots north of Cape Thompson, west side, small craft advisories become brisk wind advisories here from the southwest on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for tonight, high pressure building in over the Bristol Bay area, western Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, ridging up into the southwest interior. So dry conditions definitely, but low clouds and fog, lots of IFR here over the Bering Sea, more rain pushing into the central Aleutians. Look for pickup in the winds. Showers diminishing slowly, but staying unsettled up here with this trough in the north, but a lot less precipitation for the North Slope and eastern Arctic coast with a chance of light rain and snow. Clearing out over Kodiak Island with rain already ended and rain increasing across all of the panhandles. That system pushes in and then it'll push eastward. Got the 30 knot westerly winds here on the south coast tomorrow with behind that front. Moderate amounts of rain over the central and southern areas, diminishing back to the north. Diminishing showers in the interior. Rain pushing to the Fox Islands, pushes all of the southwest coast up to the Seward Peninsula on Wednesday. Otherwise partly and mostly sunny over the interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.